Welcome to Matt Riley Bakes. Today's recipe is for this simple ombre piñata cake. It tastes delicious, it's a real crowd pleaser, and for under a tenner. Let's get started. First of all, I've opted for granulated sugar as opposed to caster sugar, which is what I normally use. And the reason I've gone for this is because it's cheaper. And I've heard that if you put it in a food processor, blitz it up, it pretty much becomes caster sugar anyway. If you haven't got a food processor, you could chop each bit of sugar by hand. It might take a while, but it's probably worth it. Made icing sugar, I think. So there we go, that's looking a lot finer than it was originally. I'm going to pop that into my bowl. And next up, the other change from what I normally use, I'm going to be using Stork. I've never used this before, but it's quite a bit cheaper than buying 2 packs of butter. I want 500 grams of butter, 500 grams of sugar as well. So I've gone for this. It'll be the first time I've used this, so we'll see how it comes out. So before I start mixing my butter and sugar together, I'm going to preheat my oven to 180 fan. Next up, I'm going to mix my butter and sugar together. I'm not going to overwork them, I'm just going to combine them. Okay, when they're just combined and looking very much like scrambled eggs, you can add your actual eggs and your self-raising flour. This is going to be quite a big cake. I want 3 tiers for mine, so it's got quite a few eggs. It's 500 grams of unshelled eggs, flour, butter and sugar. So if you've got smaller tins or you want to scale it down a bit, only do it 2 tiers, then obviously you can make it 300 grams of everything or whatever, but I want mine pretty big, so I'm going big. I'm going to bung these in, and the flour. Half the flour to start with, give it a mix, then add the rest. There we go, that's nicely mixed, there's no lumps of flour or anything in there, so we're good to pop it into our tins. So I've gone for 3 tins. See? I've greased the sides with some butter and I've lined the base with some parchment paper. Now if you want to be really particular about this, you could weigh out your ingredients into each bowl. But I'm just going to bung them in because it's all going to get covered anyway. So if one's a little bit higher than another, it's not the end of the world. So once you reckon you've got the same amount in each tin, level them off with a spatula. Once you're happy, pop them in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. The thing with baking 3 cakes at the same time is you might have a hotter area of your oven, so make sure you check about 10 minutes in and give them a little rotate if one's cooking more than the others. It's one way to test if they're done is they should spring back, they come away a little bit from the side of the tin, and a skewer should come out clean. When your cakes are nice and cool, it's time to get them ready for the icing. I'm going to take the tops off all 3 of the cakes so they stack really neatly. Once you've cut the tops off your cake, you might find they're still a little bit warm inside. If that's the case, make a start with buttercream. So for the buttercream, we'll start with butter. You're going to use half as much butter as you are icing sugar. So I've got my butter chopped into a bowl here and I'm going to start by mixing it, so softening it up to start with before sticking the icing sugar in, because otherwise put the icing sugar in, turn this on and it goes everywhere. The butter's nice and soft. I've got 250 grams of butter in there. To that I'm going to obviously add 500 grams of icing sugar. I'm going to start a bit at a time. Add about 1/4 and give it a mix. If when you finish mixing you find your buttercream's pretty stiff, you can always add a couple of spoonfuls of milk. You need this to be soft enough that you can coat the cake with it. So there we go, that's quite a bit soft. I'll be able to ice that on the cake, no problem. Pop that to one side, and now it's time to start building your cake. So if you've got a turntable cake stand like this, that's ideal. If you haven't got one of these, just pop it on a plate. I've got a round cookie cutter here, and I'm going to cut the centre out of the base cake. Coat the top of your base layer, some buttercream. I'm also at this point going to put a small cake board down, and I've left this a little bit smaller on the bottom layer just so when it comes to icing I can get right down to the bottom. Cut the centre out of your next sponge. Pop that on top. At this point, you want to fill your piñata cake with all your sweets. A lot of supermarkets do 5 bags for £1. That's what I've gone for here. A bit of a mixture, mainly dolly mixture, but obviously use whatever sweets you fancy. Next up, pop some more buttercream icing on. Now finally, pop your whole layer on top, the one without the hole in. Next up, we're going to do the crumb coat. This is a coat of thin icing that goes all the way around the cake, which prevents all the crumb coming off when you're doing your nice ombre colours. So just using the same buttercream icing, spread it on. This is what will pull off all the crumbs. So try not to get too many crumbs back in here. So once your cake is fully covered in the crumb coat, and you've filled in any little gaps, it's time to divide up the rest of your icing. I'm going for 3 colours here, red, orange and yellow. So I'm going to have 3 little bowls, put some icing in each. For the colours, I'm going to be using these little gels. They're £1, a little bit over £1 each. I reckon I'm going to use about half, so I reckon 50p's worth of each of the colours. Once you're happy with the colours, it's time to pop them into your piping bags. I'm going to be using these disposable piping bags. I'm going to start with yellow, as that's the colour that's going to go on top. I'm going to start off piping my colour on the top first and work down. Doesn't really matter how neat it is at this point because you're going to rub it all over with a palette knife in a minute anyway. So level the top off with your palette knife, and then you can continue to pipe your colour around the side. So once you've put on about a cake's worth of icing, it's time to move on to your next colour. If you can get a piping bag that tears halfway through, that's ideal. So I'm going to have to double bag it, which isn't always such bad advice. Make sure the top of your cake's levelled off nicely first. Now, using an angled palette knife or a scraper or a ruler or anything you've got that's got a flat edge, you're going to want to merge all your colours together. So you're going to end up having quite a bit to scrape off. So if you pop that in a bowl, well, that's handy. I'm gonna give you a palette knife or whatever you're using a good clean before you go in for your second go. So there we go, my simple ombre piñata cake for under £10. I hope you enjoy making it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.